Welcome, everybody, to the Innate podcast. We have a guest on the show today. It is Sam Phalen. Welcome to the show.
Dude, thanks, Nick, Tommy. Good to talk to you guys. So excited to get into it, but I appreciate you asking me. I'm pumped.
Yeah, dude, we've been ever since we started the show. You've been someone that I wanted to interview, so we really appreciate you being on today. We actually mentioned a couple times in the show that you are someone that has a very wide range of statistics in your mind. You're able to recall them very well, just at the top of your tongue. And what we thought about today is starting with a couple trivia questions for you to answer. So Tommy got some questions and he wants to see if you can answer them. Tommy, go ahead.
Start.
These are going to be questions that for the average person may seem impossible to recall, but me and Nick feel that you probably won't struggle too much with them.
There's a lot of pressure. I feel like
it's just two questions. It's just two questions.
It's only two, yeah.
Hit me.
All right, so the first question is, what two teams are the only teams in baseball to ever have four pitchers win 20 games in a season?
You're talking one team?
Four pitchers.
Roster, same year?
One roster, same year, 20 wins, four pitchers. So 80 wins between the four pitchers.
Okay.
At least.
80 wins, four pitchers. This is a tough one.
It is.
One of them is going to be a Braves team in the 90s. I would guess because they've got Glavine Smoltz. No.
Earlier than that, both of them.
Okay. There's a Yankees team that probably won like 120 games that probably had a bunch of people win games. You're kind of stumped me with this.
This one was the second one's a little easier than this one. This one was, it took a while for me to find.
The Big Red Machine. So no. All right. Tell me. You got to tell me.
All right. So we got the 1920 White Sox.
Okay. Yeah.
And the 1971 Baltimore Orioles.
I've got the shirt on, but the 1971 O's. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. You stumped me on that. You start to get a little bit before my my date of birth, and it the further back you get from my date of birth, the farther back we go.
When I saw 1920s on there, I was like, I don't know, Tommy. That's a long time ago.
This is a question you would have been able to answer in high school, I feel like. Because I could say
have a little bit of brain fog right now. I'm readjusting to society. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. So
yes,
but yeah, I've been out of pocket for a little bit.
And then, all right, the second question we got is, which NFL team is the only to have two players rush for 2,000 plus in a season?
Okay, 2,000 in a season. So you've got
2,000 yards, two players.
The Tennessee Titans.
Yes, there we go.
Derrick Henry. Chris Johnson. My boys. There you go.
It. Hell yeah.
That was a beach ball for me. But
yeah.
We had to go with the two teams you were most correlated with.
I'd probably get fired if I didn't know that one.
All right. So following the trivia questions, we just wanted to understand how you got to the position that you are in today. When did that love for sports start? And when did you see yourself being interested in sports media?
Yeah. For me, sports was kind of always sort of my thing. Like growing up, it was really what bonded me to my dad and bonded me to my brother was like talking about baseball and watching the Chicago Bears and Chicago White Sox and just kind of something that I found a weird level of passion for and like a lot of neurotic interest in. So over time, like that level of interest developed into a lot of knowledge, like you brought up, where I started to be able to store stats and just pull things and pay attention to not just my favorite team, but the rest of the league. And so, as you get older, you start to think about what you want to be when you grow up. And it's not just I'm a little kid saying I want to be in the major leagues someday. It starts to become real and you start to think what's realistic for me. And I knew that I wanted to work in sports in some capacity. I didn't really know what it was, but I knew I wanted to be around the game because this is what I knew. This is what I liked and what I felt like I was good at. And I'm a competitive person. And so I wanted to do something that I felt like I would thrive in and be good at. Really, for me, it was kind of combining a lot of my interests and skills and realizing that I had the gift of gab in a way, that I could talk to people. Like I was involved in theater and I had a lot of theatrical improvisation skills and a creative mind that liked to create things that made me realize, hey, talking to athletes or creating content around sports and being on sports radio or sports television shows felt like something that I would love to do every day. And, that's kind of when it hit me. And I sort of realized that sports media was an avenue that I could be successful in and something that I wanted to pursue full time.
So did you go from like you knew in high school that you wanted to go into this. So did you take any specific courses in high school that would lead into, I obviously said you went into theater and stuff, but was there anything in high school that led into your college life?
In high school, really my original goal was to be into like sports journalism for a while, like really be into sports writing. And it's kind of an ironic path that I've taken now to be actually writing frequently, because high school almost taught me that I didn't like writing. I took a lot of writing courses that made me realize, doing these assignments and having like, deadlines and days that I have to get stories submitted by and filed by isn't really for me. I'd much rather just talk and have fun. And so that kind of shifted my perspective of what I wanted to do in sports, and not necessarily being your capital J journalist, and being more of like a content creator that also has some like journalistic responsibilities and the respect of a capital J journalist. And so, it's hard to find sports specific classes. You can take sports marketing, you can take sports management or whatever at some schools, but nothing really captures, what's helpful in the sports industry in high school. So for me, it was all about like, let me get to college. And it was very impactful on my college choice. Like my college selection, my options got narrowed down, because a lot of schools, you go up to them and they say, well, we've got media, or we've got broadcast journalism as a major, and you can take a minor in sports marketing. And you're kind of piecing together this catalog of what you want your college experience to be. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go to a school that had sports media, sports specific broadcasting opportunities for me, where the classes that I were taking was more, fine-tuned for what I wanted to do.
Yeah, it was geared towards that idea of sports media, not just trying to piece all the things together and like, oh yeah, I guess I can go into sports now after I learned all the basics. But there's definitely a difference between going into regular media and then going into sports media for sure.
Just in my enjoyment too. Like I do not enjoy the broadcast or like the newsroom side of like, that major. And I did have to take some of those courses, and I'm like, doing the weather in a TV studio is not exactly something that excites me. Some people like that, and that's what they want to do. They want to be the morning traffic anchor, but like that would be horrible for me. I wanted to do sports. And so I didn't want to go to college and have my entire college experience being learning all of these other skills that I didn't want to apply in my life, when I could go somewhere else that had a specific program tailored for me and people that, wanted to do the same things as me.
So, I mean, obviously you had like your gen eds and everything you had to take, but once you hit Lipscomb and started really pursuing that degree, what did your course load look like? Like what type of classes do you have to take to get into sports media? And
dude, it's fun. It's like one of my favorite classes. My first class really in my major was, it was called on-camera delivery, which is just a course that makes you comfortable talking in front of a camera. And it gives you like different strategies of how to handle yourself in a live interview setting, on stage in front of people. We did everything from recited a poem to a camera, like it was from the heart, a deep poem that you just had to stare into the camera and act normal, to like an infomercial where I'm up there acting like Billy Mays, and you have to play and lean into this character in this performative way. But it really taught me a lot of skills of like how to be on camera and be comfortable in my own skin on camera. There was other stuff, like I took a sports announcing class, and like our final exam was doing play-by-play of 10 minutes of any sporting event from history. And you just like do it live. Like a sports fan's dream in a lot of ways. And that's kind of what I was hoping my college experience would be. It's funny. I think my job now is like a fake job. My college experience was also fake college. It's like, I didn't take a test. I just figured out if I knew how to produce a podcast appropriately.
That's crazy. 'Cause it's like, for me, like I've been wanting to get better at being in front of the camera getting in interviews and being better at them. But like all I can do is like maybe get like a job interview and just hope I do better. Or like we're doing now, we're doing like a podcast, and I had to seek out a podcast to be able to do this and learn that, where there is that specific sports media degree where they have you go through an entire like whole coursework, and it sounds like a lot of fun for sure. And it definitely does not sound like school. I think that would have been a really cool process to go through.
And the people that you're learning from are like exceptional. It's not a math professor that has a math degree and has, come back to teach courses because they got their doctorate in mathematics or whatever. Like it's usually people that are hired in the real world in some of the career fields that you would like to be in yourself. And so it's, having adjunct professors that have experience as reporters, as play-by-play announcers, as, PA, public address announcers. And, these are the people that are telling you, here's what works, here's what doesn't work. Trust me, I know. And very cool. Yeah, for sure. And then I just find, and I think a lot of people feel this way, this is kind of a no dust statement, but I just think, I operate at my best when I'm having fun and when I'm getting to enjoy what I'm doing. And I would have teachers in high school who were probably surprised that, I've had some success in what I wanted to do. I've had professors in college that would probably be very stunned that I've had success in what I wanted to do. And it's because I didn't really try, because I didn't really care, and it wasn't a passion. But like, I think a lot of people have things that light them up, that make them wake up and give them life. And some of the stuff that I would do, gave me life every day. And that's what I felt like I thrived in.
Yeah, that's just, it's just thinking about that as a course load is unbelievable to me.
No, I did feel a little bad. Like I lived with a, big house of 4 other dudes while we were in college, and
they're all fucking complaining about.
One of them is, in pre-med bio, and he's going to med school. The other one's in pharmacy school. It's like, these guys are grinding with actual real jobs that the rest of the world like needs and are very difficult things that are way over my head. And I'm sitting there like, NFL players, I'm really stressed. Thursdays. I got to get my podcast about the NBA finals out before midnight. Otherwise it's going to be like, and you put that into perspective and you go, okay, this isn't really like work. And that realization is something that I try to keep with me all the time. Like any job and like any course load or whatever it is, like there are a lot of times where I'm like, man, this kind of sucks. Like I'm really getting mad at work right now. I don't want to do this. I want to do anything but work. And it ruins a little bit of the magic that it has when you first start. But I do try and keep that in my head, being like, yeah, I mean, hey, there's people who are doing a lot worse right now. People like working manual labor jobs and doing blue collar stuff that I would definitely not be able to get up out of bed for. It's like, your problems are not they're insignificant. And it's definitely a big blessing.
Did your expectations going into learning sports media completely flip the script once you finally got into the whole coursework and then into your work that you're doing now?
Yeah, weirdly enough, I feel like, and I hate saying it, but I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was. And I mean, I definitely got very lucky with my opportunity and kind of at the right place at the right time. I did go in with this understanding of, hey, getting a job in sports is a super competitive field, and you're probably going to have to like work your way up. A lot of people who are successful in the sports media industry start doing high school sports in the middle of nowhere, and then they maybe work their way up to a low-level college and then maybe a big college, and you just hope to get to this professional sphere someday. And I was kind of prepared for that battle and journey going into it. I knew that, I had enough passion for it to be able to prove myself and work my way up. Didn't really expect to be out of college working in the NFL and to be like in an NFL locker room a week after I graduated from university. But, the opportunity fell into my lap in that way. And one piece of advice that I got during school that I tried to make sure I, stuck with me was that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. A lot of people get lucky in life, but there's a lot of people that also have opportunities to get lucky and aren't prepared to take advantage of that opportunity. So I just tried to get myself in a position where, hey, if something comes up, if something opens up where people give you an offer or an opportunity that you can kind of go into it full tilt and make sure that you're representing yourself well in that situation. So it's definitely a grind. The hours are not super fun. I mean, as much as I can sit here and record a podcast with you guys in the middle of the day and I don't have to work a regular 9 to 5, if a trade happens at 11 p.m. on a Friday night, my weekend is gone. And all of a sudden you are, you're locked in and committed to that for a bit. So, you get what you put in. And I think it's been a lot of fun, but, a little bit easier than I think I thought it was going to be in a weird way.
I mean, you also had this is a spectrum that has always come easy to you. I feel like even in high school, you could just spew anything about sports all day, every day. And I feel like that's where some of the ease comes with it. This is just something that I know you have been passionate about your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of why I wanted to get into it. Like I said, it's like, there are some other things in this world that I think I could have been good at, but it would have required a lot of application and a lot of work, and it would have required me to live with a constant challenge. And while I do like challenging and pushing myself, I also like being good at what I do and like it when things are easier. Easier is better. And sports always came easy to me. It was always what I could sit down and, like you said, talk to anybody about. It didn't even have to be my team. I could talk about my team for hours and hours and hours. But if I meet somebody on the street and go, "Oh, you're a whatever fan,"
you're a Cowboys fan.
Let me tell you about the Edmonton Oilers, and we can talk about that team for an hour, and that's a way that we can bond. And so it was always kind of a skill of talking to people and being able to engage people in conversations around sports. And, I think that's a really happy place to be. And I think everybody should try and I think we all do in our own way, look for those opportunities, is to take what we're best at and what comes easy to us and think, how do I monetize this? How do I make this a career or make this into something that can be profitable for me? If you have a passion, there's probably a way to make it money, make money using your passion. You just have to kind of navigate and figure out what that looks like for you.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously you had to find a few internships before getting a real job in sports media. What did it look like getting those internships? I noticed you had at least a couple. Were those actively pushed on you with your course in school, or did you have to seek them out and find them yourself?
Yeah, well, one of the things that, so I actually transferred schools midway through college after my freshman year. And one of the reasons that I transferred, I started at Bradley University, which is an incredible school for sports media. They have an entire college of sports communication that is one of the most well-respected in the country. And, it's just a few hours from, where we all grew up. And so it just made a lot of sense for me out of high school. And then I got there and I kind of realized, because there's this college of sports communication, there's hundreds of kids in my graduating class that have the same major as me that want to do all of the same things. And we're in the middle of nowhere in Illinois. So the opportunities are few and far between, and there's so many people wanting those opportunities. It's not going to be easy for me to get a ton of experience. I looked at a transfer, and one thing that Lipscomb offered me that really is what drew me there is Nashville, one of the most booming cities in the country with professional sports and Division I college sports. And they're the only school in the area that offered a sports media type of program. And funny enough, I talked with the director of communications for the university before transferring in, and he said, "We don't have a sports media major yet, but next year it's going to be part of our catalog. So if you transfer in this year, we can start getting you in some of those courses and you can be our first major in sports media." So it was kind of an opportunity to be they always ask you the question, would you rather be a big fish in a small pond or a big fish in a big pond or a little fish in a little pond? And I got to be a big fish in a small pond, but it was also a big pond in itself. It's I'm in Nashville and I'm the only fish. And so that was kind of the perfect opportunity for me. And so it did kind of come to me a little bit. I think I did well in a lot of my courses to impress my professors with some of my work and just my passion that I had for what I was doing, and built relationships with them where they had connections around the city that ended up being, brought to me as opportunities. I had the chance to do some play-by-play, do some social media internships, and do some other like broadcast production for Lipscomb Academy football, who had just hired former NFL quarterback and Super Bowl winner Trent Dilfer as the head coach and put millions of dollars into the program. So I'm doing play-by-play that gets to be on television in Nashville. I get this opportunity to go do beat writing for Vanderbilt basketball, and it's Division I basketball, and nobody really cares about Vanderbilt, but everybody cares about Kentucky and LSU and the other schools that are coming into town. And so now all of a sudden I'm in the Kentucky basketball locker room, and I'm in the Florida basketball locker room, and I'm getting to talk to players and coaches that have some national recognition and, refine my skills in that way. And so it was, part of the reason that I ended up at Lipscomb and in Nashville was because I knew the opportunities would be out there, and because everybody knows everybody in this city. And so it definitely helped me. I didn't have the same struggle as some college kids out there that are like applying to 20 different internships, trying to find one to take them. It was a fortuitous spot for me to be in.
That just like gave me goosebumps how like out of a fucking movie that is.
Yeah. No,
like that is just insane.
It really like was fortunate for me. And, from one thing that I also really wanted to do, another piece of advice that I got while I was in school was just to be good at everything. So many people that get into sports media try and pigeonhole themselves on what they want to be and what they want to do. You want to do play-by-play. So the only opportunities that you're going to take are play-by-play opportunities to build a portfolio. And that's what you want to do. And you don't want to learn about production, and you don't want to learn about social media, and you don't want to like all of this stuff. And I tried to make it my goal to get good at everything and do a little bit of everything, have experience in everything. So I did play-by-play and color commentary for Lipscomb's men's basketball team, which was over the radio. So it was a little bit of a different style of broadcasting than the TV broadcast I did for football. I got to do some production for ESPN Plus through the university and the sports media program for other sporting events that took place on the university's campus. I got to do my beat writing for Vanderbilt. I got to do some social media and graphics using Photoshop and different Adobe suites while I was doing my internship at Lipscomb Academy. And I felt like I came out of graduation being like, I can write, I can broadcast, I can podcast, I can make graphics and do social media. And that's what employers are looking for. And you never really know what job in sports is going to pop up and be available when you're on the other end of graduation. But I also wasn't ready to sit there and wait around for the perfect thing to fall into my lap. Yeah. And it did, which is great. But, you also have to make your own luck, like I said earlier.
Yeah, I actually really like that idea of making your own luck, because you put yourself out there to be able to have those opportunities, to be able to be chosen by whoever, pretty much. Because I love this idea of like what you did by building all these different kind of aspects of your position that you're in now, building an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are. So these people that are coming in and telling whoever, like the professors are telling these people that you should only do this or you should only do that, by you not listening to them and just building that stack of proof that you can do anything, obviously has set you out and set you apart from everybody else. And I think it's just really cool to see, knowing that you were trying to do this ever since I met you in high school, and you're able to do it now. I think it's really sweet.
Dude, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, I think it is a big like tool that I can have in my belt. Having a lot of tools in your belt, that is. The other thing with sports media as an industry that they warn you about when you get ready to go into it in college is there's not a lot of full-time jobs. It's a lot of like, hey, you're going to be a contributor for this website and a contributor for this website, and you might make a little money on the side with your podcast over here. It's kind of hard to give yourself full-time opportunities and not just contracted labor. And a lot of people that graduate with degrees make good money are still contracted labor for a lot of the people that they work for. And I was able to get a job that is salary and full-time and keeps me in one place with a lot of like contract stability. And one of the reasons I was able to do that is because my value is not tied to one particular aspect, one medium in media. It's not tied to just my writing or just my podcast or just my reporting. It's the fact that I can do all of those things and make graphics for the social media pages. And I know how to edit YouTube videos and make thumbnails and do a lot of different tools where it's like, just employ me as one of your full-time employees, and, we'll work on me just finding work to do to be productive and make the company money. And I wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity. I might not have even gotten hired had I not come out of school with the ability to say, oh, and I can do this, and I can do this as well. I'm a really good writer, but I don't know what any of that other stuff means or is, and you have to teach me all of that. Maybe they'll find somebody else.
So how exactly did you get the position at A to Z Sports that you are now?
Yeah. So it was funny. It was a couple of weeks before graduation, and my roommate at the time in the College of Business told me, hey, I'm going to this event later, and there's guest speakers, and they speak about entrepreneurship and their business journey. And, the guys that are speaking today have a sports media company. And if you want to come, I can bring you as a guest. I get extra credit points for my class. And so I said, yeah, bro, I got you. I'll show up. Random Thursday afternoon, I show up, I'm sitting down, I'm listening to these dudes thinking maybe it'll be kind of interesting to hear how people carved a path for themselves in sports media. And as they start to talk, they start to bring up this idea that, hey, we're A to Z Sports and we're in Nashville right now, and we're actually just getting into Philly, but we're expanding and we're trying to get into different cities around the US and different NFL markets. And right now we're getting ready to launch A to Z Sports Dallas and A to Z Sports Chicago as two of our markets. And they go on to list how they're always looking to hire young people who are ready to be creative in the space and give them their first opportunity in sports media, and how they've built their business off of that. And all of a sudden I start to think, you're hiring people that are young people in sports media for contracted work here and there, but you're opening A to Z Sports Chicago, and I'm looking for a way to make money outside of college. And so I go up to them after they speak at this College of Business, introduce myself, say, hey, I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I'm a big Bears fan. You're not going to find anybody that knows more about the Bears than me. I know the entire roster. I'm willing to write about it and talk about it and do whatever you need. Let me make money and help you guys. They say, okay, well, send us some of your work. So I do that, and I badger them with a bunch of emails for a couple of weeks. Graduation has just kind of passed now, and they finally hit me back and say, all right, well, let's work this on a trial basis where we'll pay you for 1 month of you writing these articles and doing content about the Bears. And I do that, and I'm writing, but I also let them know, hey, I just want to let you know my passion is not in writing. I would like to be working in broadcast of some capacity, and that would be my long-term goal. And I just want you guys to be aware of that before, you start to employ me. And I think I just, tried to do my best work possible on these Bears articles, tried to show passion and knowledge and, hit my deadlines, go above and beyond. I would send them little Instagram reels and podcast clips that I made myself just to show them, hey, I can do this stuff too. And I did that for a little bit. And, about a month later, instead of re-upping my contract, they called me and said, hey, actually, our Titans reporter is leaving and going to do a different job. And so we are looking to hire a full-time Titans beat reporter for the company. And, we can go somewhere else in Nashville and hire somebody who's been doing this for 10 years, but we might have to pay them a little bit more than we can pay somebody coming out of college. And you've got beat writing experience. You've done good work for the last month. Do you want the job? And, of course I jumped at the opportunity to do it. And so that's kind of how it started. That's how I got my foot in the door. And it's been, a couple of years now of trying to build my brand as a reporter, build my brand around Nashville as somebody that people recognize and respect the work that I put out, and, be somebody that when I say something, they think it's fact and they have to go and send it to all their friends. And, I've been working on that for a bit, and it's been going pretty well.
Dude, that's so cool. I remember, I don't even remember which turkey bowl it was, but I remember we went to Mickey's and you had to post something. You had to record a video. And I remember I don't know, like I said, I don't remember when that was, but I feel like that was close to when you either just started or maybe your first 6 months on the job.
Yeah.
And I remember that, and I think that's pretty sweet. It's just crazy to see how far you've come up until this point. But transitioning to like your role now, like you said, you're a beat reporter, a beat writer. Can you explain
Sure.
exactly what that is?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do, like I said, I do a lot of everything for the company. Now, my official title would be I'm the Titans reporter or the beat reporter. And so during the NFL season, my days are pretty much one, I host a show, I host a podcast that is in the mornings. And so wake up bright and early, and if you're a Titans fan, you throw the live show on, and you basically sports radio. Like, we shoot the shit and talk about whatever Titans topic is popping that day, and we give our opinions and fire off hot takes. And I have the unique perspective of being one of those hosts that's also in the building and in the locker room and on the practice field, and so I can provide some insight as to what I'm seeing and what I'm observing about the team. And I think it creates for a fun dynamic that the fans really enjoy. And then I head to practice. I go to the practice and I watch the team practice. After practice, there's usually a press conference, there's locker room availability. And that's when I'm popping around to different interviews, and I'm recording on my phone. And I'm recording on my phone to get both a transcript for articles that I'm going to write and video for social media, because Instagram, Facebook, they pay big bucks for reels that can pop off. And so, if it's a video of me talking to Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill or whoever it is, and they say something interesting, that's going to make big money for the company. So yeah, I record my interviews and interactions with players. I write about my opinions or what the players have told me or what I expect for the upcoming game. And then on Sundays, it's the press box for the game, and you watch the game, go to the locker room after the game, give your analysis, and you repeat the next week. That's kind of the week to week during the season. Now, the off season is a lot of content creation. Kind of, it's finding stuff to talk about when there's nothing to talk about, and finding ways to create engaging podcasts and articles. And I go to the NFL Combine, I go to the draft, and I try and do these different activities to like get the fans excited about the Titans and want to keep coming back to A to Z Sports, even when really there's nothing going on in the NFL. And so, yeah, it kind of shifts based on where in the year that you are, but that's kind of the day to day. And there's some other responsibilities sprinkled in here and there too, to make sure, hey, like I said, if something's got to get posted on Instagram, somebody's got to do it. And I like to be the guy that steps up.
That's honestly, it's crazy. Like we were talking earlier, how it doesn't sound like a job, because that sounds like so much fun to be in the locker room, connecting with the players and stuff. Do you remember like the first time you got to walk into the locker room? Did you have like kind of an imposter syndrome? You're like, am I supposed to be here right now?
Yeah.
Like, am I allowed to walk in here and talk to these guys?
I still get imposter syndrome a lot of the time. Like, you try and not let it creep in a ton, but then, some of the guys, you just think of them as like normal people, and they all are normal people. But when you're in like your fantasy football league with your boys, and your boys are talking about X and X player that I'm standing there having a conversation with, and you're like, this is, somebody that everybody in the country is talking about right now. Or there's a national headline that happens regarding the team, and you realize I was there for that moment. To like, I'm the one that asked the question that sparked that national headline. Like, that's weird. It starts to get like that imposter syndrome definitely sinks in. I would say my first moment was the first press conference. I got hired like my first press conference on like a sample period was right after the draft. And so it was like the introductory press conference for Traylon Burks as the Titans' first round pick. And that I was mainly just shadowing. I didn't really have a role in that press conference. And my first full-time press conference as a reporter on my own was actually, and you guys might remember this story, Ryan Tannehill comes to the podium and is asked about the Titans drafting Malik Willis. And he makes a comment about, it's not my job to mentor Malik. He's like, my job is to win football games and be the starter.
That.
And immediately, everybody tweets it away, and boom, within 10 minutes, I've got ESPN, Bleacher Report, they have notifications on my phone about what I just listened to Ryan Tannehill say to me. And that was the moment that I went, whoa, like this stuff is real and big and fast. And that's a 15-year veteran NFL quarterback that I'm talking to. That's not supposed to happen. That's the first one that jumped out to me.
That's a pretty big one. That's pretty nuts, dude. I couldn't imagine being in there and being at that time and being able to witness that. I mean, that's pretty crazy for him to say that and stuff. But going back to, like, let's say you go into a locker room and you're trying to connect with a player and learn about something like coming up or their thoughts on that. Do you have to, or how would you build connections? Do you have to build connections with these players to be able to talk to them? Or is it kind of just like, this player's available at this time, this guy's willing to talk right now? How does that exactly work?
Yeah, usually the star players are available at given times. Like, you're not going to get the quarterback whenever you want. The quarterback speaks at the podium at a scheduled time. Here in Tennessee for a while, Derrick Henry spoke at the podium during his given podium time. Most of the rest of the players, of like outside of 2 or 3 designated players, are a free for all. And so you walk into the locker room and it's kind of just on you. Go up to him, talk to him. Sometimes everybody's going to the same guy if he just made the game-winning play or just blew the game or whatever it is. Sometimes you're in a one-on-one with somebody, and there's benefits and negatives to both, because usually if everybody's going to one person, it's because that's the story and you want to go and you want to get the story. But you also don't want to get the story that everybody else is working on and everybody else is writing. And there can be a benefit of zagging when everybody else is zigging. So I try and do a little bit of both. And to go back to the relationships thing, yeah, it's super, like, you don't need a relationship to talk to a player or to even get a good quote from a player. They'll talk football with just about anybody. But I would say there's another level of like information that you can get when a player is comfortable with you and has a relationship with you. And that's a really difficult thing to navigate. If you talk to a reporter who's been doing this for 10 years, they probably have the phone number of just about every player on the team. They've got the phone number of most of the agents. They've got that's their call list. And so if something happens or there's a rumor regarding a player, or if a guy's hurt and he wants to know if he's playing or not, he calls him and he says, "Hey, bud, what are you doing? Like, are you playing or not? Can you let me know when they decide?"
Wow.
And as a rookie reporter, you don't have that same benefit. Like, you don't have any of those connections. And so you're trying to build those connections while also knowing they already have those connections. And I did this in high school, man. I came from Lincoln Prairie School, small school, dropped into the bucket of a big public high school. And you're like, I'm trying to make friends with all of these people that already have friends. They don't need new friends. They didn't submit an application to have new friends. And so you're trying to wiggle your way in there without being obvious, without pushing anything. And it can be very hard. But the industry is a relationship-driven industry, and most information cycles from people that have connections, and the people that break the most news are the people that have the most friends. And, you just got to try and find a way to be like authentically yourself. And the hardest part, I think, for me has been figuring out where to draw that line of like, I am a professional, and how do I take our relationship from being, hey, we have good banter professionally, to being like, hey, let me get your phone number and let's go like play golf this weekend. You know, that's a hard conversation to have. And it's still one that I try and figure out how to navigate every day.
Yeah. It seems like you have to have a sense of rejection. You have to be able to go up to someone and be willing to get rejected. And I couldn't imagine how many times you've had to like go up to someone, hey man, like, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Or they just decline or whatever. I feel like that situation would be super awkward. But I was interested in, like, let's say there's some news that comes out that's kind of, I wouldn't say controversial, but it's tough to put out. So
yeah,
how would you say you go about like the morality of it? This information is kind of sensitive information, but you're kind of like, it's against your morals, but you kind of need to do your job. But that might break a connection with a player if you decide to put something out that is a little bit harmful.
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, it's an important way that you have to manage your relationships as a reporter. And I think there's people that aren't great at it, that work in this industry, people that they're best buddies with a couple of players on the team. And then all of a sudden their best buddy is sucking at his job and not playing great football, basketball, whatever the sport is, right? And it kind of clouds your vision and your ability to be objective or say something negative or report the hard news. And so you do try and create a natural distance. And I think there's always a natural distance for me in some of these relationships with saying, hey, we're friends, we're tight, I've got your back, like I'm looking out for you. I'm not going to do anything to hurt your image, in the public eye. But if you do something to hurt your image, I have to be fair. And so my approach to it is usually to exclude my personal opinion and report the facts. When stuff is sensitive, you report the information that is out there and, completely remove any of your own sort of substance. Not something that I like doing. Most of the things that I write are, here's a little bit of fact, here's a little bit of opinion or analysis sprinkled in, and what does it mean? Makes it unique to me. And I think that's what people like reading. But, and I dealt with this a lot over the last 2 years, last season especially. I mean, we had, I guess 2 seasons ago, my first season on the job, you dealt with an offensive coordinator that was arrested for a DUI mid-season. You dealt with a backup running back that was arrested for domestic violence mid-season. And now you're talking to these people at a press conference and you're talking to them into the locker room and you're reporting on this information and you're saying, well, I don't want to be unfair to this person. I don't want them to be mad at me and hate me, but I also have to stand on business a little bit and do my job. And, it's not just with sensitive information. It's with your opinions too. Like if I go online and I write, hey, so-and-so's horrible, he needs to be cut, you better be ready for so-and-so to say something to you when you get in the locker room, because that happens every week. There's somebody who is confronting somebody about something they said or wrote or did. People pay attention. And that's another thing that I didn't know about sports media when I first got into it. I was working for Vanderbilt basketball at the time, and they had just had a nice little late season run, had played a lot of good teams, really competitive, lost to Kentucky in overtime, lost at the buzzer to Alabama. They were playing good basketball, but they weren't finishing games. And towards the end of the season, right before the SEC tournament, I wrote this long piece, as I do, in my voice, using all of these different metaphors and analogies for who Vanderbilt basketball is and how their season has gone. And I finished the piece by basically saying, look, as good as they've played, as much as they've turned it around, it's all too little too late for them right now. And, they can hang their hat on playing close games with Alabama all they want, but at the end of the day, they're always the bridesmaid and they're never the bride. And so for the SEC tournament, they're not going to make it past Thursday. And that's what I wrote, and I put it out there. And Vanderbilt goes on and wins 4 games in the SEC tournament and plays in the SEC championship game. They lose in the SEC championship game, and I go to the press conference after the SEC championship game and ask a question saying, you played your best basketball late. You had this run in the SEC tournament. And I asked the head coach, Jerry Stackhouse, NBA legend, Jerry, what is the takeaway from the season now that everything is in the books? And he says, well, we made it past Thursday. We played on Friday, and you said we wouldn't play it on Friday. So made you and a lot of other people eat your words. And I saw what you said. I saw what you wrote about us. I printed it out. I showed it to the team. We used it for motivation heading into the tournament. And he goes on this long thing and that was the first time that it hit me of hey, you're not just writing for the thousands of fans that are, commenting on your articles. These players are reading this stuff. Their families are reading this stuff. They care and they remember who wrote it. It's not anonymous. And so you have to remember that when you're putting something out there, that the way that some sports media guy at home, your favorite sports media or sports radio anchor that's talking trash about this guy sucks and this guy sucks and this guy sucks. Well, that radio anchor's not in the locker room facing those players every day. And, when you do have that responsibility as well, you realize these are real people, and I don't want to get into a fight with a 320-pound defensive lineman.
Yeah, I think that it emphasizes the fact that you can learn that these are actually real people being on the inside. And especially with that situation in general, I couldn't imagine the feeling of, like you said, you're like, oh my God, this is real. Like what I said actually affected this entire team.
Well, it's good and bad because you are, I'm on one hand, I'm like, that's sick. Like Jerry Stackhouse reads what I write about his basketball team and he shows the team, and there's a bunch of future NBA players on this team. And not only like sometimes you're in these press conferences, at least I was when I first started, and you're like, do they even know who I am? Am I just the dude that wears the polo and asks the questions, or do they actually know my name? Like if I saw the head coach at Target, would he know who I was and say hi? And when you first start the job, you kind of don't think so. You kind of feel like I'm just a background character. I'm not one of the main people that have all these relationships and connections. And that was a moment to me that I was like, no, they do. Like he knows who Sam is. He knows what Sam wrote, and he knows when Sam asks him a question, and all of the players do too. So it's cool because it's validating of your work. It's validating that, what I said, they cared enough about what I said to get mad about it. Like the opposite of love is indifference, in the words of the Lumineers. It's apathy. It would be if I wrote something negative and they said, who cares what this bozo writes? Like that's not even worth paying attention to. If you get mad, you care.
He still said something about
it. Yeah, that was cool that they cared, but then you're also like, I also got to be careful because I don't want to burn any bridges here.
Yeah, that's insane, dude. Like I can't believe you. I feel like there's so many different levels to your job, and you're just kind of like, it's like an onion. You're just peeling the base layers off the onion. It's going to keep getting deeper over time.
Yeah, I'm still learning it. Like I learn something every day, all the time. And I've been fortunate enough to build good relationships with some of my media colleagues in the space. Got people who have been writing about the Titans and writing about the NFL since before I was born. People who have those connections that I talk about. And those good people to know because they're, willing to hold your hand when you make a mistake and it's not looking great for you, and they tell you how to navigate it. And if I ever have a question about, hey, I have this piece of information, how's a way that I can approach this in a fair manner? Or I might write a sentence and I'll send it over to somebody, be like, am I being unfair in writing that? Or is that just an opinion that is defendable? And they're good about like walking me through that and navigating that. And I try to not hesitate to ask for help when I need it because there's a lot of people that know a lot more than I do.
Yeah, that's just like the benefit of having a mentor. Go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah.
Have you ever had like a starstruck moment with a coach or player where you were kind of just like, holy fuck, am I really in front of you right now?
A starstruck moment with a moment or a player. The Bucks came to Nashville my first season, my first training camp on the job for joint practices. So Tom Brady was in town and he was kind of just around and like doing a press conference. And, it was weird because the Titans never really had like a huge national star in that sense. Like Ryan Tannehill's an NFL quarterback that I respected a lot, but anybody on the Titans, even a Derrick Henry, is not like this
household name,
well-known household name national figure. And Tom Brady comes to town, and that was a moment that I was like, yo, that's Tom Brady. Like that's Tom Brady. Anytime I've done anything with Chicago, first preseason game last year, the Titans were at Soldier Field. And so I went to Soldier Field and covered a game at Soldier Field. And I was in the locker rooms of Soldier Field and watching Justin Fields get out of his car and like walk to the locker room and took a video and said what's up to him and was kind of like, whoa, I'm walking the field before the game. I'm in the end zone. And I'm like, I'm in the end zone of Soldier Field right now. That was a very surreal moment that kind of had me struck a little bit. I'm sure I'll do it again because the Titans open the season in Chicago this year. So I'll be in the same spot for the Caleb Williams debut.
That's such a full circle moment too. Cause I remember, I don't even know how long ago it was, but I know you tweeted it and it was like my first ever TV appearance and you're wearing the Justin Fields jersey backwards. They got him.
I forgot that existed too, but I had the Justin Fields jersey that was an old Mitch Trubisky jersey that I turned
that you taped,
Fields jersey. Yeah, and then but for real, like you're sitting there and Justin Fields is not a national star, but he's a star to me. He's a star to the people in my life. Like my dad loves Justin Fields and like he's the Bears quarterback. You know, you grow up worshiping the Bears quarterback, and then you're sitting there in front of the Bears quarterback and going, "This is weird. Like this is not where I'm supposed to be."
Except Jay Cutler.
I love Jay Cutler. I've seen Jay Cutler a couple times around Nashville. He's a Nashville resident. Jay Cutler is Vanderbilt alumni. There's just a couple weird moments. Like sometimes it happens when you don't expect it. I was in Minnesota last fall for joint practices, did a press conference with Kirk Cousins. And for whatever reasons, I was a little bit starstruck by Kirk Cousins. I don't know why. About Kirk Cousins. Like I feel like Kirk Cousins is one of the most popular names to talk about in NFL media. Everybody has an opinion about Kirk Cousins. Everybody talks about him. He felt very larger than life. And then you're sitting up there having a conversation with him going, I don't know why this one's weird for me and some of these other ones aren't. But that was one that got me too.
That's pretty funny. You're talking about like being in the press conferences and being really close, up and close with these players and stuff. Today, I was starstruck. I was at Lifetime, and Jimmy Garoppolo was there.
Jimmy G. He does go to Lifetime.
And I guess he's like the new head coach of the Rolling Meadows football team. So I was like, why is he here right now? But he's I guess he's that. I guess he's the new.
See, this shows you how much I knew. I was off the grid during free agency, and now I don't know Jimmy's not in the league anymore.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I looked it up. It said he played for the Rams, but then I talked to somebody that was at the gym, and they were like, "Yeah, he's the new head coach."
He signed with the Rams.
Yeah, I don't know. They said he was the new head coach for the for the Rolling Meadows football team. So
Robbie Gould also took a job. He's also a head coach somewhere in the area. Just so
I feel like that was Rolling Meadows too. I honestly I thought it was the same.
Say Robbie Gould's the head coach of Rolling
Dude, that's gonna be
that
a crazy
football team is gonna be fucking stacked. They're gonna win.
Listen, that was kind of the deal that I had at Lipscomb Academy. Like you tell people, oh yeah, I do this thing for this local high school team or whatever. It's like, wait, no, they have 46 Division I athletes on their football roster. Their head coach is a Super Bowl champion and former Super Bowl MVP at quarterback who runs one of the most prolific quarterback camps in the country in Elite 11. The special teams coordinator is Phil Dawson, a 20-year NFL kicker. Like the defensive coordinator was a linebacker that played 10 years in the league. The offensive line coach was a former offensive lineman from the New England Patriots who was in the huddle for the moment that Drew Bledsoe got hurt, came out of the game, and Tom Brady came in for his first career snap. This guy was in the huddle for that moment. And I'm like, this is your coaching staff? These are the people that these kids are learning from? Of course you're winning the state championship. That's Rolling Meadows now. So
yeah, you're like, let's see them go against Schaumburg High School and see how that goes.
Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, well, I remember I used to think that Rolling Meadows was bad when we were there. But like they had Zach Christie or something that came out of there for basketball, and he's now on the Lakers.
Yeah, they both the Christies.
The Christies.
Cam Christie just got drafted too. So the two Christies got drafted to the NBA out of Rolling Meadows, and now all of a sudden they're NFL players as their coaches for sports.
So speaking about the Lakers draft, what is your opinion?
Dalton Connect.
What is your opinion on the Lakers taking Bronny James solely so that he can play with LeBron?
Whatever. It's what the Lakers have done or not the Lakers, but it's what the league has done for the last 10 years now. Is LeBron's basically a GM. Like everybody just wants to make him happy, and so you do what he wants. Bronny is not an NBA player. He can be in the future, maybe 4 years from now, he's like a productive role player. The fact that he got drafted is crazy, and it's nepotism, but you know what? Whatever makes LeBron happy makes LeBron happy.
Do you think we'll see other superstars kind of pushing that in the future?
No. To be honest.
You think this is a one and done?
I think it's like LeBron having a kid as young as he did, and then being in the league long enough to have that kid be old enough to be in the league is so rare that we may never see that again. And then two, I just think LeBron is on a different level of stardom that I can't, if Kyrie Irving had a kid right now and wanted his kid on a team, I don't imagine he has enough pull to make anybody do that. So I think LeBron's just in his own
realm.
But he's just, he's in his own stratosphere of are you guys seeing me really?
Yeah. It's choppy.
It's a little grainy, but I think I think it should be fine later on.
That's how I'm seeing myself too. I'm not sure why.
That's okay. I think it should upload better once it finishes.
It has a little thing in the top corner that says actual recording is higher quality.
Okay. Okay. Kind of shifting back to football. I listened to a podcast that you're on. I don't remember what time period it was, but it was the Hot Read podcast, and you guys are doing the off season for dummies. Oh, this was in February, actually. I remember. And there was a part where one of your biggest pet peeves in the off season was somebody asked what like the Titans can do, and it's what can they learn from the Kansas City Chiefs? And you said nothing. You just need a Patrick Mahomes. I thought that was funny, but a question to follow that up was the Bears could have drafted Patrick Mahomes in the same season they drafted Fields. Do you think he would be the same player if the Bears drafted him?
No, I don't. I mean, I think Mahomes is a franchise quarterback. Regardless, he's got enough of the intangibles to be like a really good Pro Bowl level quarterback. But I do think so much of the league, especially for quarterbacks and young quarterbacks, is system driven, and going into a system that has the right head coach and the right weapons around you and a good enough offensive line to protect you. And he had a nice year learning from Alex Smith, and not every rookie gets the Andy Reids of the world. I think the new kind of meta in sports and in the NFL of like how to win is find a young quarterback on a rookie contract and, have them walk into the best case scenario possible. Like we saw the Eagles basically with Jalen Hurts playing like an MVP because he had all of these weapons and a great offensive line and a good head coach and a good defense. And Jalen Hurts can win an MVP. Brock Purdy can almost win an MVP and almost win a Super Bowl. And I think all of those guys are relatively successful in other places, but your system makes you who you are. And I think over time, Mahomes has become who he is because of where he landed. In Chicago, he's the best quarterback in Bears franchise history, but I don't think you win Super Bowls with the Bears.
So what are your expectations for Caleb Williams going to the Bears?
Man, I'm feeling good. I'm as excited for the Bears as I've been since probably 2019 after the 2018 season. I think, Hard Knocks is going to help and hurt in the sense that it's going to get expectations really, really high, but it's going to be fun for, those behind the scenes looks at what meeting rooms and locker room atmosphere is sort of like. But yeah, Caleb Williams is doing exactly what I just said. He's walking into one of the best situations possible with an established offensive line and 4 or 5 really, really good, like Pro Bowl level weapons on offense, potentially a very good defense and hopefully the right offensive coordinator. Like Shane Waldron had a lot of success in Seattle working with Geno Smith in kind of a play action, deep throwing LA Rams style offense. And it's what Caleb Williams does really well is work off of play action and improvise off of play action. So I'm excited to see what they cook up for him. And, how can you go wrong throwing to Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze and Komet and, DJ Moore. Forgot DJ Moore. He's their third receiver. That's crazy.
It's interesting that you bring up Hard Knocks. I'm actually super excited for that. But being in the position that you are in now, is it kind of like, it's not that big of a deal anymore because I kind of know what's going on behind the scenes?
No, it hasn't changed. Hard Knocks is still magical for me, because there is a level of like what you don't get to see as a reporter. Like I am in the building. I get to see what the locker room is like. I get to see what practice is like. But there are things that happen like those like talent shows and different moments in the actual meeting rooms and seeing a guy's like life back home that I still think are really, really fascinating and cool to see. And like weirdly enough, and I don't know if this is normal for everybody that works in sports or just something that I felt, I almost feel like the Titans are not in the NFL. Like I feel like they're separate from the rest of the NFL. The NFL still excites me. I'm still a big NFL fan, and I can watch the Bears with like this sense of like boyish fandom for them, which is odd knowing what I know about the league. Like I think there is a level of fun in being ignorant to what is happening. Like as a fan and being ignorant to the nuances of the NFL, the nuances to an offense or getting to know the players. you can feel however you want to feel. You can be mad and happy and say irrational things, and that's fun. It's fun to talk that way with your friends and talk about a team. And I find myself a little bit more like looking at the Bears and having to say, hey, like everybody's having this whole Justin Fields argument and this Caleb Williams argument about why he's good or he's bad. And I just tend to know a little bit more about what, like, how the offense actually works, how the locker room actually views a player, why somebody's saying something in the media and like the motivations behind that, or how information gets leaked. If there's a piece of information out there about the Bears view Justin Fields this way, there's a reason behind that. And, you know, you don't necessarily stop and pause and think about that as a fan. But if you have been on the receiving end of that information, you know, this is being told to me for a reason. And yet I don't necessarily separate it perfectly because I still get fired up during Bears games and like get myself back. So maybe it'll go away eventually, but I love Hard Knocks and I love watching as many Bears games as possible and pretending like I'm ignorant to what's actually going on.
So, I mean, knowing you as a person, I would say that you've always been a very optimistic person going into whatever team that you follow, whether it's the Titans now or the Sox or the Bears. Have you seen
not anymore?
Have you seen like different realms of reporters? Some people that are just like yourself, very optimistic, but then there's another realm where they're always pessimistic all the time.
Yeah, there are definitely reporters that I've interacted with that, you know, are lean on the pessimistic side, and you know, they can turn fans off by doing that. You know, I try, the way that I approach the Titans and my attitude towards my content is matching the energy of the fan base. I think media, you know, we do have a job to report on things and inform people, but I also view media as being the voice of fans. And, you know, you might be somebody who doesn't have friends who root for your favorite team. You don't see people that you can talk about all the time. You might try and call into sports radio and they don't take your call. And so you've got all this stuff that you just feel like you got to vent and get out about whatever player, whatever opinion you have. And if you're reading it or if you're listening to a podcast and somebody else is as angry as you or at feeling it the same way you do or has the same opinion as you, I think there's some comfort in that for people. And that's the media that they tend to lean towards, is what speaks to them as a fan.
Okay.
It's why people want their reporters, weirdly enough, to be fans of the team, because they want to feel like you have as much at stake as I have at stake. So this time of year, I always am going to go optimistic. Like, I'm always leaning optimistic because I want people to be excited. I want people to be excited about the Titans and excited to watch my show and excited to read my content and excited to consume football. And if we're going in apathetic, we got problems. Or going in pessimistic, we got even bigger problems. But hey, an ugly loss that makes a lot of people upset, like, that's when I can start to let it loose and, you know, really start to lean more negative, because I know people at home are not feeling good about anything with the organization right now. And they want people to say, you are right for feeling this way. They don't want to log on and have me say, I understand you're upset, but there's more nuance to this and it's all going to be okay. You say, no, you're an idiot. It's not going to be okay. I'm mad right now. So whatever I get a vibe of like, here's how the majority of the fan base is feeling, that's usually the tone with which I write. And I still try and keep it like factual and objective and like try and make sure that I'm not just writing things off of opinion or because this is what people think. But, you know, you do have to sort of match the energy, so to speak.
Did you become a Titans fan when you got the job? Like, obviously you probably weren't thinking of like the Titans as like a team that you would root for, but like once you got the job, you're like, okay, well, now I kind of have to be a fan.
Yeah, you know what? I would say no. Like, I don't root for them to win or lose necessarily. I root for them to be interesting. You know, I don't necessarily care if they lose in heartbreaking fashion or win in epic fashion, as long as it's not boring. Then then it's good for me.
Okay.
I mean, I would rather them win than lose, because my opportunities, you know, go way up. One, fans are more engaged to a winning football team. It's just better for business if they win games. to like, I would love to go cover the NFL playoffs. I would love to go cover a Super Bowl. And I do have some relationships with players on the team and I would like to see them succeed. You know, you see your guy get in the game and you're like, yeah, I know him outside of football and I've gotten to know him really well. You don't want him to blow the opportunity.
It's deeper than that. Yeah.
You do end up having some rooting interest where it's preferable for me for them to win. But I would say the difference is, like, if the Titans lose on a Sunday, I don't think about it once I leave the stadium. I like it, that's work. And then I show up to Monday and I'll talk about the game and that's work. But like, when the Bears would lose, when I was growing up rooting for the Bears on a Sunday, it like ruins your week. You sit there and you're just like mad at the result of the game. And you're like wanting the next one to get there so quickly because you can't even stand the taste in your mouth of the last loss. And it just bothers you. It doesn't bother me in that way. I don't care.
Okay.
But if we're in a close game and it's playoffs or no playoffs, I'd rather go to the playoffs because that's good for me.
Yeah, another week of work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
What do the loops that you have to jump through to be able to have the confirmation to put information out? Like if you go into a press conference and you get a quote from, let's say, Ryan Tannehill or Will Levis or whatever, are you just able to, okay, I'm just going to post it right away? Or do you have to kind of you take some steps to be able to do that?
Yeah. Well, anything in a press conference goes out immediately. Like I'm live tweeting press conferences. Anything that is said to me in a locker room is going out pretty much immediately. That's stuff that, like, as long as you make it known that you're recording and stuff is on the record, you know, anything that says is fair game. So what you can't do is necessarily be like, hey man, like between you and me, and you're talking about it and somebody says something and then you're going to go put it out. Like that's unethical journalism right there. But if I've got my phone out and I'm filming you, you know that what you're speaking what you're saying to me is going to go online. Or if I'm recording you with a mic and doing a back and forth like this, where it's interesting is with information of like scoops, as they call it, you know, so-and-so is getting traded, so-and-so is getting released or cut, or, you know, this free agent might sign here. That stuff is very interesting because you do have sources and information from people that comes your way. And yet ethical journalism, what we practice at A to Z Sports, is that you have to get at least 2 and preferably 3 sources, different sources, to confirm a piece of information before you put it out. Which sucks. And it is really, really frustrating. You know, I've had some really big stories come my way that I know are coming down the pipeline, and I haven't been able to confirm it with enough different people to actually report it, but you know it's happening. And then you see, oh, it's a national headline and this person's getting credited for all of it. And you say, what if I would have just like run with it when I had it? But it only takes one to ruin your reputation. It takes one moment where you put out information that ends up not being true and not coming true like you think, for people to stop taking you seriously. So it's better to take extra precautions and make sure that you are validating the information. The only exception is if it comes directly from a source. So this is all for like secondhand information. If you have a source with a team, or you know, a source from around the league that is telling you a piece of information, that's when you need to verify it multiple times. If a player is telling you something, or if a player's agent is telling you something, that stuff, you know, you can just kind of roll with, because the player is telling you themselves. So it's straight from the horse's mouth.
Cool.
So where do you think you've seen the most growth within yourself as a broadcaster and reporter?
Weirdly enough, I think I very quickly taught myself to stop caring what people think. You know, I'm not sure I had that level of like self-respect and confidence to just be like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, if you think I'm wrong, you think I'm an idiot, you're going to call me names. You don't like my reporting, you don't like whatever it is. You know, I was very bothered by that when I first kind of started. And I think I've seen a lot of growth of like understanding, one, sports fans are crazy, and they're crazy passionate, and they're going to say some out of pocket stuff if they disagree with you all the time. And guess what? The next day when I do something they do like, their tone's going to be completely shifted and it's going to be different. But then also just realizing that, you know, it's people that have the courage to say stuff on the internet or whatever all the time. And generally, if you were to confront somebody about what they would say, they'd walk it back. And I've had a couple of those before. I don't usually like to be the reply guy on Twitter that's like coming back at everybody who says something mean to him. But occasionally you'll say something and be like, here's why I said this, get the point right. Or like, that's not what I said. Here's what I said. And they're normally like, oh, sorry. Yeah, love your work. Cool. And it's like, yeah, all of a sudden you didn't think I'd reply. I reply, and you're not talking as much crap in the DMs anymore. I think I've grown in that area. And then professionally, I think, every year I get a little bit better at the relationship aspect of it. And that's something that you can only really grow at over time. I was the new kid on the block in the first year, and all the other reporters kind of looked at me and was like, who's this dude asking questions? And I wasn't super comfortable in press conferences, and I wasn't super comfortable asking my own questions and having one-on-ones with players. And then, as kind of time has gone on, I've started to understand how it works, understand how to be prepared, have confidence to ask whatever the heck I want and go up to people because I want to talk to them. And, I've built relationships with media. I built relationships with players and with coaches. And, that has given me a sense of confidence too, of feeling like I belong and feeling like I'm, one of the media people that is here every week or every day covering the team. And I'm hoping to continue that as I go, is just get more familiar with people in the building, the players, the coaches, the front office, the owners, have fans get more familiar with me and know what I do and know that what I do is good work and be a voice that people respect.
That's awesome. I watched another podcast that you were on in the September of last year, the Lame Stream podcast. And in that one, you said when you began the position, you weren't really in the weeds of the NFL. You've always been more of a baseball guy.
Yeah.
So being 2 years into the job, how much more NFL knowledge do you have now than you did when you started?
Yeah, so much. Like I genuinely did not pay attention to the NFL before getting this job. Like I was a Bears fan and I knew the Bears in and out. And I could probably tell you the quarterback and the running back of every team and the head coach. But like you miss me with different defensive players and defensive schemes and learning about just like the nuances of football. And this job has kind of forced me to be a student of the game in a lot of ways and watch the all 22, break down the coverages, understand what teams are calling and doing and like the concepts that they're trying to run and why they're trying to run them. And then just paying attention to more players. I watch a surprisingly little amount of football. I don't watch football outside of the Titans or Bears, mainly just because, I do football all the time. So if there's a Thursday night game on, can be a great game. I'm not sure I care enough to like actually watch it. But, you do check the metrics and the advanced analytics and make sure you're aware of the moving and shaking that happens around the league because, any of it can end up being beneficial to me. If a random player gets traded to the Titans tomorrow, and I can be somebody who has a baseline understanding of their game and what they excel at and why they became available or why they got traded or whatever the circumstances are, you've now made yourself a voice that people can listen to that is more than just the generic media person reporting the news. And so that's where that can kind of be very beneficial.
So do you see yourself branching out from the NFL? Do you want to get into baseball eventually?
Hopefully. I'm kind of, I've made it kind of known. I'm in Nashville here and it's big popular name to be brought up for like an expansion team. Possibly. I think baseball is a grind, and that has been one thing that a lot of my mentors and colleagues have, let me know is, hey, just so you know, what we do on game days, which are long days, you're doing at least 81 of those just for the home games. And like, it's going to be a different level of grind that the NFL is not. And you have to be prepared for that grind. The NFL offseason has a lot happening during the offseason in a way that baseball's really does not. Like there's a lot more boring months, and I have my fears about that. So I'm not fully sure, but I think, if there was an opportunity in Major League Baseball, I think I would be pretty hard pressed to like turn it down. That is ultimately my first love and what I do know the most about. And, you know, Tommy asked a question earlier about like sports was always easy for me, and I wanted to be in sports because I knew it's what I was best at and knew that it would come easy. Baseball comes easy. Like I don't have to spend any time breaking down a pitcher's pitch sequencing or like why they're making the choices that they're making as like a manager. Like I get that naturally, that in a way that I don't get football. Like I have to sit here and look at route concepts and look at coverages and understand what, like, hey,
because you didn't grow up playing it.
Yeah, before I bash this offensive coordinator, let's actually look at the play calling and figure out what they're trying to do, and did it work, and was it execution or the play call, and what the situation is. And baseball's easier. So that's one of my goals. Another one of my goals, I think, is I'm really going to try and lean more into the creative media. Like I just enjoy more opinionated creative media in general. The parts of, you know, my current position that I think are the less glamorous ones for me are when I'm reporting news and going through the motions, and kind of it can be more of a chore to do that stuff. And it gives me less creative freedom. I would love to work a job that gives me control. It's why my goal was always, let me be a radio host. Like, let me do something in that capacity where it's up to me what I want to talk about and what I want to say. And the conversation can go any number of ways, and every day is going to be different. So trying to create more of those opportunities for myself to be creative and just like get some variance in my content and my day-to-day sort of life is probably a long-term goal for me as well.
Continue on like your long-term goals. I know we talked about earlier how Tommy brought up how you took that. Well, actually, it was a different one. You tweeted, or it was on LinkedIn. I don't exactly remember, that you fulfilled a childhood goal from the age of 12
Instagram.
of covering the NFL at Soldier Field. So
yeah,
how is the goalpost moved, and what is your next goal that you want to hit when it comes to like your current position?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, right now for me, it's all about personal branding and like growing my personal brand, figuring out different ways to do that. And, you know, doing that professionally and personally, and finding a way to not only be like that reliable voice, but, you know, I think everybody wants to kind of climb the ladder a little bit. And just because you're in the NFL and covering the NFL doesn't mean that there's not opportunities to gain a bigger following and have more people like paying attention to what you're reading and getting different sponsorships because of that. Or there's different ways to kind of go to a national scale that I think would be appealing to me. And so that's a long process, but I think that is probably the next sort of mountain to climb, is figuring out like, hey, all of these shows that I grew up watching, all of these like the nationally represented sports media, how do I become a figurehead of those things and somebody that, you know, people care what I say? For somebody who doesn't care what people think, I care that people hear what I have to think all the time. So I want to be heard.
I do want to say that looking back at our graduating class, at least, if I had to pick one person that isn't in the career path that they should be in, it is probably you.
That's what I like to. I agree with you. I do agree that like I'm definitely the good news is
like when I think Sam Phalen,
no other options. Like this was it. It's like, I would have been a really bad employee at any sort of like business job or whatever, like a white collar job. I'm not doing well in any of those. So
yeah, but when I think Sam Phalen, this is that like that's picture book what I think you'd be in.
Dude, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's definitely, I've gotten that my whole life, is kind of when people would ask me like, hey, what do you want to do? I tell them, they'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And I'm like, okay, well, if it makes sense to you, then it should make sense for me, you know, and we'll see. Like life has a way of like, I mean, there's a lot of things that interest me that I would do. I like side quests and side puzzles and different things and pursuing random stuff. So definitely going to have a few of those as well.
Awesome, Sam. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. We appreciate you so much. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Where can people go to check out your stuff and stay up to date with you?
Yeah, A to Z sports.com has all the written content if you're trying to get in the weeds of the Titans and the offseason drama. My personal stuff at Sam_Phalen, Sam_Phalen on Twitter. That's the mecca for me. That's the one that I'm on most frequently. So you'll be getting consistent tweets about whatever sports nonsense I have pop into my brain.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you again, Sam.
Yep.